Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Bboy Matt Action. I'm from Rock Forest Crew and Waseda Breakers, and today I'm going to teach you how to do the flare, and this tutorial is brought to you by Spin Control. So the flare is one of my favorite power moves because it's just so dynamic. It's big, it's flashy, you can throw it in and it's gonna make an impact right away. The second reason I really love the flare is because you can use it once it's mastered to generate a lot of power very quickly from a lot of different positions, whether that's standing, from a forward position, or even off of your back. The last, and I think actually for me the most important thing about the flare is it can be used as a great transition move between footwork or freezes or anything like that. It's an easily accessible power move that's going to give you the kick to go into that next transition you like, or to go into a cool flow. So even though I said the flare is one of my favorite power moves, it's also one of my least favorite power moves. And the reason for that is it's probably the #1 most strenuous of the basic power moves in terms of just physically having to push and kind of will this thing into existence. Before starting the flare, I think something you should really be aware of is what's necessary to make it happen. So you're gonna need a pretty good amount of core and upper body strength to hold yourself up. You're also gonna need some good flexibility in your hips and good mobility because you're gonna be going all the way around through all these different positions. So if you don't have flexibility, you don't have mobility, it's gonna be harder. It's not impossible, but the more flexible you are and the more mobile you are, the easier this move is gonna be. The last thing that I would think to warn you about before you start doing this move is there can be a lot of high impact on your wrists. So make sure that you properly warm up your wrists. If you have some exercises that you know that can strengthen your wrists, definitely do that. And most importantly, to get your flare, the biggest requirement is actually going to come down to your willpower. Quick story, when I was learning how to do a flare, I was in high school and I think I had one flare, or like a 3/4 of a flare for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And one of the guys I was practicing with was just like, "Oh, you've been working on that for like 2 years, bro. You're never gonna get it. You're whack." And that made me so mad that I hit 3 flares. So if you got some emotional baggage and you need to take it out on a move, this is the move. So if you guys watch the channel, if you know our brand Spin Control, we make equipment for breakers. If you're trying to do any spins, etc. So today what I'm wearing is the Spin Control spin jersey, which is great if you're trying to do like a windmill to a flare or a backspin to a flare, or the reverse of either of those. It's just a really great spinning material, keeps you cool, it's super slippery, so I highly recommend this product. The other things that I'm wearing today for some head protection, if I'm gonna go to like a flare to a windmill, would be our just regular knit cut beanie. And then under my beanie, in the flap here, I actually have this product, and it goes around your head. It's Velcro, so it just keeps your beanie on nice. You can keep it on while you're doing your flare. It's not flying off in the distance. So go check out the products. So when you're learning your flare, one thing that is probably going to be a useful tool for you is to create a cross like this on the floor using tape. This cross is actually used to keep track of where your hands and where your hips are and your feet are as you're learning this move. So if you can create one of these, this is a great place to start. All right guys, so we're gonna get into the actual main course of how to do this move. So to start, let's talk about how to start. There's essentially 2 ways of starting your flare. So the first way is from standing. Basic power move start, where you do the step out, step back, hand goes down, and then up, right? So the great thing is you're starting standing. There's a lot of power that you can generate, but if you don't know how to use that power, it's kind of pointless. The downside to this move though, is if you start from this way, your hips start from a standing position, you're high up. Once you go into the flare, your hips drop. And what happens then is your hips might fall straight down to the floor if you don't know how to support them in the front. So the other way to learn it is just not start from standing, but you start from a down position here, like you're in footwork. So you started here, you go from here, you go back, and then you kick into the front like this. So the good thing about that is your hips are staying on the same level. There's consistency from flare 1 to flare 2. The downside is it's a little bit harder to generate power because from a standing position, you just get to generate so much more. So pick which way you want to go. Neither of them is wrong. With this tutorial, you can choose either and see what works for you. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is hand placement, because if your hands are in the wrong position or they're moving consistently, that means that you're wasting energy. Because if you can't control your hands, which are the base of this move, you have to make up that energy using the rest of your body. So this is why I say use this cross. This is gonna help you understand specifically for this part of the tutorial, your hands. So you're gonna wanna put your hands on each level of this cross here on one line. And you wanna keep them there as you're doing your entire flare, okay? So when you do this, the other thing you need to think about is finger placement. I've seen people who don't know how to do their flare, they'll start it like they're doing a push-up. It's not a push-up. So you wanna make sure that your hands are out to the side. You don't want them backwards. This is also not a good look. In terms of distance of hands being apart, you don't want your hands going past your shoulder width. If they go a little bit, it's okay. A little bit in or a little bit out, both are okay. But essentially shoulder width apart, that's what you're looking for in your flare. If it's more than that, what that means is when you're going from one hand to the other, you have to fall and then get all the way up. Look at this move right here. My shoulder now has to come up over my arm. And that's like a lot of wasted energy. Whereas if I just put it under, I'm on to the next flare. Another type of placement I want to talk about is your head placement. So sometimes people ask me like, where do I look? Where do I look? As much as you can, try to look forward. Keeping your head forward also means that when you're in the front of your flare, you can really get your hips up. If you're looking down, your hips naturally want to go down too, right? So try to keep your hips up because that's where you want to be looking. And then in the back too, you're going to want to try to keep your head up. If you can look forward, great. If you have to look a little bit down, that's okay. But when you come around, you want to be up, looking forward. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is our leg position. Now, this is when we actually are going to start trying to do our flares, okay? So what I want you to think about while you're doing your flare with your legs is you're going to try to kick the temples of your head on each side, okay? That should be your mindset. On each side of your flare, you're trying to bring this leg up to your head. And when you come around to here, you want to bring your leg up to your head. So that flexibility there is important. Having strong hip flexors that are going to let you lift your legs up like that is also important for this move. So your leg placement is really trying to go up, 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 up. And when you get a little bit better at it, you want it to go kick, up, and down. You want to really hit that V-sit in the middle. That V-sit is going to be important for going to like flare up moves later on. So I'm going to start from here. I'm going to go back and I'm going to kick this leg up towards my head. I'm going to try to hold it there, okay? So I'm going to go to this position. That's where I want to get to. Boom. If you're doing it and you end up like this, well, that's not really a flare, right? So we're going to work on getting that leg up. So that's your step one. It's just going from here, boom, boom. If you want to do that from standing, you can do the same thing. The trick is to use this cross to stop at the first point. Once you feel kind of comfortable with that and it's not like super awkward, you're going to try to move on to the second point. Your right leg should be up, trying to kick towards my head. So then the next thing we're going to try to do is have our left leg come up and match. We're going to hit that V-sit, all right? So check it out. Boom, boom, come down. And try to stop in line with this arrow. Bring your legs up and then down at the same time. Try that too. Like that. The next step is the third point. So we've done step number one here, step number two, which is here to here, and then we're going to go to step number three, which is here. You can see my shoulder is over my hand. If you're out, this is going to be very hard. If you're too far over, you can make it, but it's still going to be hard. Try to keep your shoulder on top of your hands. You're going to end here. You want to be imagining kicking your temples with your leg. From here, boom, boom, boom. Okay, the last step is to just go back to your starting position. So you're just going to go one flare, back to the beginning. So here's how it looks. Go from here, boom, up to there. Okay? Let's try that one more time. I'm going to go here, up, and done. Another really important point here is having fast hands, because what happens is, let's say you're coming around the front and you're waiting, and then you put your hand down, but your hips are already dropped because your hips can only go so high.
when you're going this way. They're gonna start to fall. So you need to, when you're at the height of your V kick, this part, that's when you wanna have your right hand down so you can continue. Boom, to the next one. I'm gonna show you what I mean here. I'm gonna try to show you on step one. You can kind of see that my hips are still really high because my right arm is there to catch me. See how easy that is? So the next point is your left hand now, or your second hand. That also needs to go down as fast as possible. Watch my second hand, it's gonna come down pretty much as soon as I come through this point. This hand needs to come down when I'm going from position 3 to position 4. That's one flare. If you get that, awesome. This is when the real fun starts, because you have to try to do more. Okay, so once you have that first flare down, like I said, it's just gonna be a mental and emotional push to get to flares number 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever. Couple words of advice, is I see a lot of people get stuck because they're like, oh man, I hit one flare, but it's not very nice looking. And then when I get to 2 flares, it's really not nice looking. Don't worry about it. Do not think about that, at least for a little bit, until you can hit multiple pretty continuously. Then think about really trying to make each flare look nice. Because in the beginning, it's just about building that muscle memory. Like, your legs are scraping, don't worry about it. Just do 3, try to do 5. Because once you decide, oh, I'm only gonna do 1, guess what? You're only gonna do 1. And then you're gonna be questioning or asking someone, why am I only hitting 1? How many are you trying to hit? Are you trying to hit 5? Well, then don't expect to hit 5. I do have one strong piece of advice. Try to keep your hips high. Don't do low hip flares. The reason is if you think about it, for like every other power move, your hips are almost always above your chest. In the flare, your hips are typically below your chest. So the higher you can get your hips, the easier it's going to be for you to continue into different power moves. So here's what I mean by that, right? If I'm in my flare in my front here and I'm really low, like my butt is literally on the ground, and then I have to go to a windmill. To go to the windmill, I have to lift my hips from this position all the way up to this position, and then I can drop into the windmill. But if my hips are already high, then dropping into the windmill is not tough, because I'm just moving my chest down a little bit instead of lifting up my hips and dropping my chest. So that goes for head spins, halos, windmills, air flares, 90s, and pretty much all those moves, your hips are above your head. Okay, so I want to talk about a few exercises that I've found to be really helpful with doing flares. When I was learning them, one of my teachers, Power Surge, he taught me these push-up variations, which I don't understand exactly how they work, but this really does the trick for especially getting my hips higher in the front of my flare. So it's a push-up, but you're going to turn your hands back as far as you can. If you can't, don't hurt yourself, because it does take some wrist flexibility, but you turn your hands backwards and you just try to hit some reps like this. This is a good one. One thing that I would talk about is the L sit. Being able to do that. A V sit, which looks like this. Being able to do that. Like a planche or a press position. You're gonna go here. Being able to hold that. Another really helpful one, which is actually a footwork transition, what is called a shoe through, because you literally put your shoes through. But you're basically gonna go from here, shoe through, shoe back, shoe through, shoe back. Another flare specific exercise that I've learned is, I learned this from my friend Joey Chaotic. He's a streamer, check him out on Twitch. He's kind of crazy. But you go in a straddle, go one leg at a time, up, 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 up. And you do both. This one is really helpful for flares. Flare 90s, I just hate doing it, but it's there for you. And then the last thing that I would say, which is really important and b-boys often neglect, is hip flexibility and mobility. What I've found is when you stretch, like everything is just easier.
Alright guys, so that pretty much does it for spin controls and flare tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them down in the comment section below and we'll try to get back to you. You can also hit me up at Bboy Matt Action on Instagram. And if you want to wear and use any of the equipment that I'm using today, check out spincontrol.co. That's .co. Thank you so much guys. Peace.